In this presentation, we're going to be looking at the allomorphy found in the Duru dialect of Rawang. Rawang is a cover term for many of the Nungish languages found in Myanmar. The Duru dialect is spoken in Nogmung Township, Putao District, Kachin State, northern Myanmar, and you can see it outlined there in red. There are around 35,000 speakers of Daru. You can also see on the map some of the other Nungish varieties in their original home areas. So Nungish is known for its agglutinative morphology, including agreement for person and number. The major political divisions are Rawang, Churung, and Anong. The purpose of this research is to present data on the Duru dialect, which has not really been published about before, and also to account for several oddities in the Dru person marking or participant marking morphology. We'll start by looking at the phonology of the syllable and then go on to looking at the morphology, specifically the mark scenario prefix, intransitive person marking, and transitive person marking. The data comes from direct elicitation mostly in the context of language learning by using a standard word list and eliciting sentences and verb paradigms for each of the words found in the word list. My language helper is lengthening, middle-aged female Daru speaker in Chiang Mai, Thailand. So looking at the phonology, we'll see that the syllable structure is sesquisyllabic. That is, it's possible for there to be a minor syllable plus a major syllable in the verb root, or just a major syllable in the verb root. There are clusters, and there are diphthongs, as we'll see in the following slides. There are 7 vowels: e, a, o, u, and u. The vowel, when it's lengthened, becomes a, and we'll see that the coda position can contain p, t, k. K is rare. M, n, ng, r, or ya. In terms of tone, Daru has 3 major tones: high or rising, mid, and falling. Minor syllables are toneless, and syllables with the final p, t, k, or glottal stop are typically toneless unless there is vowel length added, in which case it will either be mid or low rising or high falling. Tone melodies include falling plus falling becoming rising or neutral plus falling in the context of 2 verb suffixes put together. The glottal stop is a little bit interesting. In onset position, it is predictable, except for that you need to know that when there are 2 syllables and there's a juncture between 2 vowels, then a glottal stop could also be inserted. Sometimes, if it's in the context of a suffix, then it would just become a transitional glide. But in the case of ma'u, smoke, you would hear the glottal stop. In final position, it acts a little bit like a consonant in the case of the change from glottal stop to k in the coda with first person singular inflection For example, the verb to drink becomes ak, I drink, because of the underlying ng first person singular suffix. However, it's better to analyze the glottal stop as a tone register feature because in the case of first person plural conjugation, to drink becomes I, we drink, with first person plural suffix ya, and that is the only case I've found of two consonants in a coda, and so I would prefer to analyze the glottal stop as a tone register feature. You can see here on the slide examples of the different onset clusters that I've found, with l having the most possibilities, r having fewer, and then y having only 2 possibilities found, and then w having 3 possibilities found. Diphthongs are found only with the off-glide y. We have oi, ui, ui, ai, and I. Now moving on to morphology, we'll start with the prefixes. So there is only one person marking prefix, that is n. Randy LaPolla calls it the non-first person actor prefix, or N1. Ross Perlin calls it the marked scenario prefix, or MS. It marks second person actor, whether transitive or intransitive, and also inverse situations where we have a third person agent acting on a first or second person object. It has a base form and 2 other allomorphs. So the base form is na, as in the sentence atanawa, what are you doing? So na is marking second person there. And then with prefix or sesquisyllabic then n plus becomes na. So alup, to sink, plus n becomes nalup, you sink. However, there is another allomorph, which is n, and it comes about when there is either a minor syllable or a prefix minor syllable, such as with the minor syllable g at the beginning of the verb gerun, to pull. So when we add n, you pull, is pronounced gunrun. So in that case, I would consider n to be an infix. The same things happens with the negative prefix m. So the verb wa means to do. Then we have, when we say don't do it, we have the negative prefix ma, followed by na, followed by the root form of the verb wa, followed by do, which is a kind of an emphatic prohibitive suffix. So manwa do, don't do it, or banli manwa do, don't do work. You can read this in detail in the handout, but this compares a number of different Nungish varieties with those several contexts that we've just examined, with the addition of la, the optative prefix, and you can see that with the optative prefix, several of the varieties change the vowel to a or e, which is the form of the non-first person or marked scenario prefix in those varieties. So trying to reconstruct the original form of some of these prefixes. We have pa, imperative, not in Daru, but in Central Trung, Gongshannu, Anung, and Western Tangsar. We have the prohibitive prefix ta, only in Anung and Anong, which is probably borrowed from Lisu, which has a lot of influence on Anong. Then we have the minor syllable forms na, nya, ni, na, ni, a, e, and a. And major syllable forms, when combined with a, we have na, nya, ni, na, la, and li. Scott Delancey had previously suggested reconstructing the Proto-Trans-Himalayan or Proto-Tibeto-Burman inverse prefix as an original te, which was replaced at some point in the past by two different prefixes, both coming from a second person possessive form, na and e, where e was originally a first person plural inclusive form and then later became a second person possessive form. Delancey cites Jim Bauman for this analysis. However, when we look at the ni, nya, and li forms, then we have to question whether these were portmanteaus of originally na plus e, or coming up with ni, or was the original form something like ni or li, which later eroded to e, a, and a in some varieties. So that's a question for further research. Now we're going to look at other participant marking morphology. This is the basic intransitive participant marking paradigm. We have first person singular, the basic suffix is nga, first person and second person dual, suffix si, first person plural, suffix ya, and second person plural, suffix ning, and then of course with all the second person forms you have the prefix na, which we just talked about. For second person singular and third person both have a falling tone often, and they don't have any suffixes. So here are two examples of intransitive participant marking with no coda. Notice the long vowel with first person plural associated with the ya suffix, and the high tone with first person singular and the nga suffix, and the falling tone with third person and second person singular. Here are examples with the final r and ya in the verb root. Notice again high tone with the first person singular, falling tone with the third person and second person singular, long vowel and high tone with the first person plural. The example on the right is a little bit interesting in that it has the reflexive suffix si, which is the same form as the first or second person dual suffix si, but with first person plural in that case, the e vowel and the c reflexive suffix is lengthened because of the ya first person plural suffix, and you have two different c with second person dual and first person dual, and in that case you have the first c becomes a high tone because of a tone melody. Next, we have an example of final m and n, and you see again high tone first person singular, and high vowel and long, high tone and long vowel with first person plural, but no suffix visible. Falling tone with third person and second person singular. Note that although it says third person singular here, it's the same for third person dual or plural because there's no distinction of a number for third person. Now here, with the root having a final ng, it can be deleted in the case of first person plural. First person plural suffix ya replaces the coda ng. So rong becomes roy, deblong becomes debloy, debloy. Dung becomes dui, and retung becomes retai. Tong becomes toy. However, I found these three examples where my informant chose not to replace the final nga with ya, and it could be that there's some variation. It could be with the C reflexive suffix that might be blocking some of the process. This requires further investigation. With final pota and ka, then we simply have a long vowel with first person plural. With a final glottal stop, we have first person singular, the glottal stop becomes ka, and with first person plural, there is a ya added before the glottal stop. With the transitive marking, basically the thing to notice is the different uses of the na non-first person actor shows up, and also we have nga coda deletion and long vowel with second person singular or third person acting on a third person, and the dual suffix c becomes sa with a third person object, and the second person plural ning becomes nang with a third person object. So here is an example of the basic paradigm with different person marking. Here's with a na coda. Here's with a nga coda, and notice the highlighted or bolded examples of the nga coda deletion with the second person singular agent or a third person agent and a third person object. Here is an example of third person object a to o ablaut, which only occurs when there is a verb root or a verb suffix that has a vowel that becomes o, and in this case the falling tone becomes high. So transitive marking happens usually when there is a agentive marking on the noun phrase, and when it shows specific object. So here we see the a to o process, and then in Mutwang there is actually an o suffix. So in summary, we have the non-first person actor prefix, we have the suffixes nga for first person singular, c for first or second person dual, y for first person plural, and ning for second person plural, and then we have the ablaut vowel length and coda deletion for third person object. So, what caused the first person plural changes? Well, we have compensatory vowel lengthening related to the original e suffix. We also have compensatory vowel lengthening with the original o third person object suffix, and that suffix can also explain the si to sa and the ning to nang alternation, which originally probably was so and nong. The second person singular and third person conjugations are identical because there are no suffixes to block the vowel lengthening and falling tone processes, and the ng coda deletion can be explained possibly by the fact that in standard Jingpo there's also an irregular trend of ng coda loss, so it would be worth comparing those two languages. Thank you very much for watching.